Pokemon Pocket has been dropping new sets every month, and the biggest problem for newer players is that it can feel difficult to get older, useful cards while still keeping up with the new sets. At the time I'm recording this video, the A4 Johto set was just announced, which will be bringing us to a total of 14 packs in the game to choose from. In today's video, I'll be going through all of the packs we have so far and picking the cards that are still meta relevant that I think you need to acquire either from opening packs or through trading. And of course this guide is based on battling. If there's any cards you want to try and collect for their aesthetic, then you should absolutely do that. I'll be linking a website in the description where you can look up any Pokemon to see what cards it has gotten in Pokemon Pocket in case there's a favorite of yours that doesn't make this video. Before we hop into this first set, there's a couple of things that you need to know about how I'm structuring this video. First off, for every card in this list, you should strive to get 2 copies of that card because you can always use up to 2 copies of a card in your deck. Also, if I list an evolution card, I'm not going to list its pre-evolutions because I think it's pretty self-explanatory that you should also get the pre-evolutions. So for example, if I put Charizard on this list, then you should also have to get Charmander and Charmeleon to be able to play the card. But don't worry because the pre-evolutions are always in the same pack as the post-evolution, and you'll usually get those first anyways before you pull the final evolutions. Also keep in mind, I'll be battling versus the AI to demonstrate what these cards do, and I'm not really using good decks when I'm doing this. If you want actual deck ideas, then there are plenty of videos on my channel as well as other channels out there who make deck builds. There's also some cards that are available in more than one pack, but only a few of them made this list, and I'll make sure to let you know if that's the case. Now that you know that, let's jump right into our first Kanto set, starting with the Charizard packs. Our first Pokemon card for this video is Exeggutor EX. It is a 160 HP card with a 1 energy attack where you flip a coin. If it's heads, you do 80 damage, and if it's tails, you do 40 damage. Pretty solid for damage, and it's only 1 energy, which makes it easy to set up other cards while Exeggutor dishes out consistent damage. Moltres EX is a fire-type support card that has a 1 energy attack where you flip 3 coins, and for each heads, you can attach a fire energy to one of your benched fire-type Pokemon. It also has a 3 energy attack for 70 damage in case you need to attack with Moltres, but usually you're not attacking with it. Usually people pair this card with Charizard EX, who's next on the list. It's 180 HP with 2 different attacks, but we really care about its stronger attack that does a whopping 200 damage with a drawback of discarding 2 fire energy. If you use this card with Moltres EX, you can attach a lot of energy to Charizard so you can keep on attacking for 200 damage, which is still the strongest damaging attack in the game to this day. If you want to mix it up with the fire-type cards, Ninetales is another option you have, with 90 HP and a strong 2 energy, 90 damage attack flamethrower that has the drawback of discarding a fire energy. We can pair this with the supporter card Blaine, who boosts damage from Ninetales or Rapidash by 30 damage, bringing Ninetales up to 120 damage. Moving on to water types, Starmie EX is a strong water type card that does 90 damage for 2 energy, and what makes Starmie so great is that it has a free retreat cost, so you can move Starmie out of the active spot without sacrificing any of its energy. Greninja is up next, and it's a support card that has a 60 damage attack for 2 energy, but it really shines from its ability Water Shuriken, which can deal 20 damage to any Pokemon on your opponent's side. Since this is an ability, you can use it from the bench to get extra chip damage, and unless otherwise specified, all abilities can be stacked, so you can have 2 Greninjas each dealing 20 damage to whatever Pokemon you want, which can let you get some pretty cheeky points. Up next is Melmetal, who is a steel type card with a 4 energy, 120 damage attack, but it really shines from its ability Hard Coat, which lets it take minus 20 from all attacks. Moving on to the trainer cards, I already mentioned Blaine previously, but we also have Sabrina, who is a fantastic supporter card with the ability to make your opponent switch which Pokemon is in the active spot. This can be fantastic for picking up kills or trying to ignore a Pokemon that they have in the active spot just to soak up damage. Erica is the last card in this pack, and it has the ability to heal 50 damage to any grass type card in your deck, which can really help with sustainability for grass decks. Moving on to the Mewtwo packs, our first card is going to be Gengar. It has a 1 energy attack called Bother that does 50 damage, but it also has a secondary effect of not letting your opponent play any supporter card the next turn after Gengar attacks. Alternatively, you can also use Gengar EX, which instead of having the no supporter card effect in its attack, it always has it up passively as an ability as long as Gengar EX is in the active slot. Mewtwo EX is up next on our list. It has 2 attacks, one for 2 energy and 50 damage, and then its more signature attack Side Drive for 150 damage with a drawback of discarding 2 psychic energy. This card is often paired with Gardevoir, who has the ability to attach a psychic energy to your active psychic type Pokemon. And once again, these abilities can stack, so you can have 2 Gardevoirs on your bench, constantly attaching energy to your Pokemon. Our last Pokemon on this list is Dragonite, who has a very powerful attack of Draco Meteor for 4 energy, where it selects one of your opponent's Pokemon for 4 different rolls of a 50 damage hit. The biggest thing holding Dragonite back is that it requires 2 types of energy for its attack, so it can be difficult to rely on getting lucky with your energy output. The only trainer card in this pack is going to be Giovanni, who lets your attacks do plus 10 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon, helping a lot with securing knockouts. The Pikachu packs are the last ones in the Kanto set, and surprisingly, only 2 cards in this entire pack are actually meta relevant to this day, so you could honestly skip over these packs completely and just try to trade for the cards if you want. The first card is Magneton, who has a great ability of being able to generate lightning energy on its own, meaning you can theoretically run it with any type of deck. There's also more ways in future packs for Magneton to be able to take advantage of moving that energy to other Pokemon. The only other card in this pack worth getting is Misty, who's a water support card that lets you flip coins continuously until you get tails, and for each heads you can attach a water energy to one of your water Pokemon. It's great for expensive water decks and can sometimes land you very cheesy wins. That's going to be all for the Genetic Apex Kanto set. If you do want to end up trading for any of these cards, I will be linking my Discord server in the description and in the pinned comment. It's going to be a great place to try and trade for some of these cards. I'm also going to be having a written list of all of these cards that show up in the video in there as well. So if you just want an easier way to see it all written out, you can do that. But if you still want to find out more about these cards and why they're good, then obviously you can keep checking out the video. Moving on to our first solo pack set, Mythical Island, we're going to be kicking it off with Superior, who is a fantastic grass type support card that has the ability to make all grass energy double on your grass type cards. This is going to be helpful whenever an expensive grass type card becomes meta, because you will only need half the energy to pull off its attacks. Up next is going to be Rapidash. You might have remembered from the Charizard packs I mentioned Blaine being a card that buffs Ninetales and Rapidash, but I didn't list a Rapidash, and that's because I think the Rapidash from this pack is actually much better than the one from the Charizard pack. It costs 2 energy for its attack, but it has a coin flip. If it's heads you do 100 damage, and if it's tails you only do 40 damage. When paired with Blaine, that gets your damages up to 130 on heads and 70 on tails, and for only 2 energy, that's fantastic. Gyarados EX is a very tanky card at 180 HP, and it has a 4 energy attack that deals 140 damage with the secondary effect of randomly discarding 1 energy that's out on the field. Mew EX is up next on our list, and it's kind of a jack of all trades card. It has a colorless energy attack for 3 energy, meaning it can be used in any deck, and its move lets you copy the move of your opponent. Mew EX usually strives when your opponent has a very powerful attack that costs a lot of energy, because you can set up your Mew faster than them. Golem has a 4 energy attack that deals 120 damage, but its secondary effect is that you now take minus 30 damage from attacks from your opponent's next turn. You can also use the supporter card Brock alongside this card, which lets you attach a fighting energy to your Golem for free, but that card was back in the Pikachu pack, so once again I recommend trading for Brock if you actually want to use this strategy. Marshadow is a great fighting type card that has the attack Revenge, which does 40 damage for 2 energy, but if one of your Pokemon was just knocked out in the previous turn from damage, you actually deal 100 damage instead of 40. Druddigon up next is a great tank card. It has 100 HP and you usually ignore its attack completely and just utilize its ability Rough Skin, which makes your opponents take 20 damage every time they attack you. You usually want to just let Druddigon die while your opponents hurt themselves, or if you're ready to attack on the bench, then try and retreat out with Druddigon. Pidgeot EX is the final Pokemon card from the set, who has a strong attack that does 80 damage for 3 energy, but an additional plus 20 damage for each Pokemon on your opponent's bench. You can pair this with our first trainer card from this list, the Pokemon Flute, which lets you bring a Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile back onto the bench. Outside of using this card with Pidgeot, it's also great for Pokemon who specialize in dealing damage to the bench, because sometimes you can grab a weak card that's only 30 to 50 HP and put it back on the bench, then knock it out a second time for another point. Final card in this pack is Leaf, which reduces your retreat cost by 2. This is great for tankier Pokemon if you need to retreat them without giving up all of your energy. Moving on to our next full set from the Sinnoh region, we're going to be kicking things off with the Dialga Packs. Our first card is Yanmega EX, who's a grass type card with a 3 energy attack Air Slash that does 120 damage in exchange for discarding an energy. Since the attack requires colorless energy, this is another card that you can use in any deck, which makes it great. Shaman is a support card that heals all of your Pokemon for 10 damage, and ideally you should never be attacking with Shaman as you just want it on your bench giving extra heal support. Magnezone is up next, and you might remember how I said before that Magneton was a card who can generate its own lightning energy. Well, Magnezone is the new Sinnoh evolution for it that deals 110 damage for 3 energy with the drawback of discarding 1 lightning energy. You only need 1 lightning energy for the attack, so ideally you want Magneton on the bench stacking up some energy, and then you can attach whatever energy you want for your future attacks on Magnezone if you throw it in a different energy deck. Magnezone is also our first card on this list who is available in both packs from the set, so you might get lucky and find Magnezone in either the Dialga or the Palkia packs. Up next is Electivire, who has a great 2 energy attack, exciting voltage for 40 damage, and if you have 4 energy attached to the Electivire, this attack goes up to 120 damage. Luxray is our other electric Pokemon who has many great things about it. First, its attack deals 120 damage to any one of your opponent's Pokemon, which means you can snipe a Pokemon off the bench if you want, but the drawback is it discards all of its energy. Luxray also has a free retreat cost, so after you discard all the energy, you can run away to another Pokemon if you want. You typically want to pair these Pokemon with the supporter card of Volkner, who can attach 2 lightning energy from your discard pile to either an Electivire or a Luxray. Moving on to fighting types, first we're going to talk about Lucario. It has a 2 energy attack that does 40 damage, but it strives from its ability, which lets your fighting type Pokemon do plus 20 damage. And once again, this ability stacks, so with 2 Lucarios on your bench, you can be dealing plus 40 damage on all of your fighting type attacks. This also works for Lucario itself, so your Lucario actually just does 60 damage instead of 40 when it attacks because it benefits from its own ability, or it can do 80 damage if you have a second Lucario in play on the bench. Gallade EX is a cheap and strong fighting type card who for only 2 damage deals 70 damage and an additional plus 20 for each energy attached to the Pokemon it's attacking. So for example, if your opponent has 3 energy attached to their Pokemon in the active spot, then Gallade EX will do a total of 130 damage for only 2 energy. Rampardos is up next, and this is an absolute menace of a card who for only 1 energy can deal 130 damage with Head Smash. The drawback is that if you knock out a Pokemon with Head Smash, you deal 50 damage to yourself. It's still a very scary threat that can one-shot most Pokemon early if you get a good setup. Darkrai EX is a card that still terrorizes the meta to this day. It's most known for its ability, which lets you deal 20 damage to your opponent's Pokemon each time you attach a Dark-type energy to it. Yes, this means you're damaging your opponent just for setting up to attack, and you can do this from the bench, it doesn't have to be in the active spot. Up next we have a Dialga EX, who is a Steel type support card with a 2 energy attack for 30 damage that lets you attach 2 Steel energy to any Pokemon on your bench, not just a Steel type. This is different from Moltres EX earlier where you could only attach Fire energy to other Fire type cards. Dialga EX also has a 4 energy 100 damage attack, but usually you don't actually need to use this attack as you're typically setting up a heavy hitter on the bench. Our last Pokemon is Skarmory, who is also available in more than one pack as you can find it in the Dialga and the Palkia packs. Skarmory is a fantastic Steel type card who has a 1 energy attack that deals 20 damage, but if you have a Pokemon tool attached to it, then you deal 50 damage instead for only 1 energy. You might be wondering what a Pokemon tool is, and we're going to be starting off with that as we transition into our trainer cards. Pokemon tools can be attached to your Pokemon and have some kind of effect to them, and Giant Cape is the only tool from this pack, but it lets your Pokemon gain plus 20 HP, which can be really helpful if you want your Pokemon to survive a little bit longer. Pokemon Communication is an item card that lets you swap out a Pokemon card in your hand with a random one in your deck, which can be really helpful with consistency if you're looking to play a specific Pokemon card. Our last card from this pack that's necessary is Dawn, who lets you move an energy from one of your benched Pokemon to the active slot. We're going to be kicking off the Palkia packs with Infernape EX, who is a Fire type card with a 2 energy attack Flare Blitz who deals 140 damage with the drawback of discarding all Fire type energy attached to it after it attacks. This also has a free retreat cost, meaning after you discard your energy, you aren't just screwed and you can run away if you want. Palkia EX is a heavy hitter Water type card who has a 1 energy attack for 30 damage and then its signature 4 energy move Dimensional Storm, which deals 150 damage as well as 20 damage to all benched Pokemon with the drawback of discarding 3 water energy from itself. Manaphy is a support card that for 1 water energy can attach 2 water energy to any of your benched Pokemon, and just like with Dialga EX, this can be to any Pokemon, it doesn't have to be a water type Pokemon. Weavile EX is a dark type card with a 1 energy attack Scratching Nails which deals 30 damage, but if your opponent's Pokemon already has damage on it, then this goes up to 70 damage. I wonder if there's any cards that can make sure your opponent's Pokemon will always take damage before you attack. Anyways, Garchomp is our final Pokemon card in this pack, who is a cheap card for dual energy that does 100 damage, and it also has a super helpful ability, Reckless Shearing, that lets you discard a card in your hand and then draw another card, which is great if you're looking to draw more cards from your deck or if you're trying to find a specific card. You typically want to pair Garchomp with the supporter card Cynthia, who lets your Garchomp or Togekiss do plus 50 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon, bringing Garchomp's attack up to 150 damage. We also have our other Pokemon tool from this set, the Rocky Helmet, which makes your opponents take plus 20 damage from attacking you if it's attached to your Pokemon in the active slot. This is a great tool to put on a tanky Pokemon to try and punish your opponents for dealing damage. Cyrus is an absolute must-have supporter card. It has the ability to let you take any Pokemon on the bench with damage on it and summon it to the active spot. This is different from Sabrina, where your opponent chooses the Pokemon that gets brought in, because with Cyrus you can grab any Pokemon that's weak on the bench and bring it to the active spot to knock it out. Final card from this set is Mars, who lets you shuffle your opponent's hand and makes them draw cards based on how many points they need to win the game. This can be good because if you're about to lose, you can make them shuffle their hand and only keep 1 to 2 cards. Hey guys, Manthus from the future here, and if you guys have been finding this video helpful so far, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel because it helps me out a lot, and if you guys do enjoy this video, I'll try making more informative content in the future. Anyways, back to the packs. Our next set is Triumphant Light, and this is the first set that's heavily featured around a specific gimmick. In this case, many of the cards are linked to Arceus or Arceus EX, but I usually prefer to just use Arceus EX. It's a 140 HP card who has a strong attack for 3 energy that deals 70 damage and plus 20 for each Pokemon on your bench, meaning with a full bench you can easily do 130 damage. It's also a great card because of its ability, which makes sure Arceus does not get affected by any status condition, meaning you cannot get poisoned or have a stall status like paralysis or sleep. Heatran is our first card linked to Arceus, whose ability lets it have a free retreat cost as long as Arceus is in play. It has a 2 energy attack that does 40 damage, but this goes up to 80 if Heatran has already taken some damage. Carnivine is another good card from the set, whose ability lets its 1 energy attack go up from 20 damage to 50 as long as Arceus is in play. The final Pokemon we'll be pairing with Arceus is Crobat, whose ability lets you do 30 damage to the active Pokemon, and this does stack, so with 2 Crobats you can be doing 60 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon without even attacking them. In addition, Crobat is a free retreat cost, making it easy to run away if you have to start with it in the active spot. There are some other cards in this set that don't rely on Arceus, and our first one is going to be Leafeon EX. It's most notable for its ability, which lets you attach a grass energy to one of your grass Pokemon as long as Leafeon is in the active spot. Since Leafeon only needs 1 grass energy to attack, you can theoretically run Leafeon EX in any deck since it can supply its own energy. Glaceon EX is another strong card that deals 90 damage for 3 energy, and its ability also makes any Pokemon in the active spot take 10 damage at the end of every turn, which is great for farming additional chip damage. Garchomp got an EX version in this set as well, and it's a great card because it has a 1 energy attack that can do 50 damage to any Pokemon including the benched ones, and then it also has a 3 energy attack which deals 100 damage to the active slot. Just keep in mind that Garchomp EX does not get the buff from Cynthia. Usually when a trainer card says this Pokemon gets the buff, it will have to specify if it's EX or not, so in this case Cynthia only applies to a non-EX Garchomp. Shaman Sky is a support card that reduces the retreat cost of all basic Pokemon by 1, which can help if you're using a lot of basic EX cards in your deck. The final card in this set is Snorlax, which is a great tank card and also has a 4 energy attack Collapse, which makes it fall asleep afterwards. While this card doesn't seem too great now, more support will come out for it in the future, so just trust in me. For trainer cards, you're definitely going to want Irida. This lets you heal 40 damage to all of your Pokemon with water energy attached, and keep in mind this applies to any type of Pokemon as long as it has water energy on it. Celestic Town Elder is another solid card that lets you bring a basic Pokemon from your discard pile back into your hand. This is great if you rely very heavily on a card for bench support and need a backup plan if it gets knocked out early due to a bad start. Our final trainer card is Adamant, who lets all your steel type cards take minus 20 damage from all attacks, which is great for keeping your steel cards just a little more healthy on the field. Our next set is Shining Revelry, and we're going to be kicking it off with Beedrill EX. It has a 2 energy attack that deals 80 damage and also makes your opponent's active Pokemon discard an energy. This is great because if you get Beedrill EX set up fast, you can basically stop your opponents from progressing any further with attaching energy from the energy zone. Our next Pokemon is Meowscarada, who has a 2 energy attack that does 60 damage, but if your opponent's Pokemon is an EX card, it will actually go up to 130 damage. Meowscarada is a fantastic counter to EX metas. I definitely recommend making sure you get this card. Charizard EX got a new version in this set as well, and it's arguably better than the old one. It has a 1 energy attack that lets you attach 3 more energy to Charizard, bringing it up to 4 energy, and then by attaching 1 more energy on your Charizard, it can attack for 150 damage with no drawback. Alright, we've made it pretty far in this video, and it's now time to address the elephant in the room. I'm of course talking about Giratina EX. Its best feat is that it can generate its own psychic energy with a drawback of ending your turn if you use its ability to do so. So you can run Giratina EX in literally any type of deck and just ramp up its energy on the bench and then come in for 130 damage hit whenever you want as long as you have enough energy on it. Moving on to our last two Pokemon, first we have Clodsire EX, who is the attack Venoshock, which does 60 damage for 2 energy, and if your opponent's Pokemon is poisoned, it does 120 damage instead. Pair this with the card Grafaiai, who is a new bench support Pokemon that lets you flip a coin once per turn, and if it's heads, then you will have poisoned your opponent's active Pokemon, and once again this ability can be stacked, so you can have 2 coin flips per turn if you have 2 Grafaiais up. Moving on to our trainer cards, first we're going to have the Pokemon Center Lady, who heals your Pokemon for 30 damage and also recovers all status conditions. Iono is a card that makes both you and your opponent shuffle your deck and then draw the same number of cards as you previously had in your hand. Iono is great for trying to look for certain cards, and you can also mess with your opponents at the same time. Red is a card that lets you do plus 20 damage to your opponent's active EX Pokemon, which is great for knocking out those powerful EX cards easier. Finally, we have Team Rocket Grunt, which lets you continuously flip coins until you get tails, and for each head, you discard a random energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Definitely a super toxic card and a little luck based, but it's still pretty solid. Our final full set of this video is going to be from the Alolan region. Starting off with our Solgaleo packs, we're going to be kicking it off with Incineroar EX. This card has 2 attacks, one that does 30 damage for 1 energy, but also burns your opponent's Pokemon for an extra 20 damage per turn. And then it has a 3 energy attack that does 80 damage, but if Incineroar has taken any damage, then this actually goes up to 140 damage. The Lazzle is our next card and also our final card that's available in 2 packs, as you can find it in both the Solgaleo and Lunala packs. It has the 2 energy attack that deals 30 damage but burns and poisons your opponent, which does 30 damage each turn together. Crabominable EX is a powerful, cheap water card that does 40 damage for 1 energy, and then if you keep attacking with Crabominable in your future turns, it will do 80 damage on its attack, and for only 1 energy, that's pretty awesome. Alolan Raichu EX is an electric card that does 60 damage and plus 30 for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Alolan Raichu also uses colorless energy, so it can fit in any deck type. Oricorio is our final electric card, and it's also a great card who's mostly used for its gimmicky ability, who cannot take any direct damage from attacks done by EX cards. This means if your opponent only has EX cards, you could just hard wall them with Oricorio. Comfey is a support card that prevents any card with psychic energy from being statused. You might remember how I talked about Snorlax getting more support later, and this card is often paired with cards like Snorlax because it prevents it from falling asleep after attacking. The final Pokemon card in this set is Solgaleo EX, who does 120 damage for 2 energy, and its ability lets it move to the active spot for free, meaning you don't have to spend energy on retreating to move Solgaleo to the active spot. Moving on to trainer cards, first we have Rare Candy, which is an absolutely necessary card to have. This lets you evolve any stage 2 Pokemon from the basics straight up to its stage 2 while skipping the stage 1. Up next we have the Big Malasada, which heals 10 damage to your Pokemon and also recovers a status condition. Leaf Cape is going to be a Pokemon tool for grass types that give your grass types plus 30 HP, making it a stronger giant cape specifically for grass types. The final card is Lily, which lets any stage 2 Pokemon get healed by 60 damage. Moving on to the Lunala packs, our first card is Decidueye EX, which has 2 great attacks. Its first attack does 80 damage to the active slot for 2 energy, and its second attack for 2 colorless energy lets it attack any Pokemon that has damage on it for 100 damage, meaning you can snipe Pokemon off the bench with Decidueye EX. Next card is Turtonator, who has a 3 energy attack for 90 damage with the drawback of discarding an energy for each attack. Pair this with the supporter card Kiawe, who lets you attach 2 fire energy to your Turtonator, but then it ends your turn. Pyukumuku is a water type card that's most notable for its ability Innards Out, which makes your opponents take 50 damage if it knocks out your Pyukumuku with an attack. Lunala EX is a psychic support Pokemon that lets you move all your energy from one of your bench psychic Pokemon to the active slot. Most people try to pair this card with Giratina EX since it generates its own psychic energy. Passimian EX is a fighting type support card which has a 2 energy attack Seismic Toss for 60 damage, but also has the ability to pass off all its energy to one of your bench Pokemon if it gets knocked out, which is great for keeping your momentum if Passimian EX does get taken out. The final Pokemon card from this set is Lycanroc Midnight, which does 50 damage for 2 energy, but if you have less HP than your opponent, you do 100 damage instead. Our first trainer card is a Fishing Net, which lets you bring a random basic water type Pokemon from your discard pile back to the bench, basically giving you Celestic Town Elder in item form for water types. Poison Barb is a great Pokemon tool that makes your opponents get poisoned if they attack you, which is really helpful for chip damage. Ilima is a supporter card that lets any normal type card with damage on it get brought back into your hand, which means letting a normal type Pokemon take damage and then playing Ilima to move it back into the hand is usually how you want to play this card. Final card in this set is Guzma, who's a fantastic card I use in almost all of my decks. He will discard all Pokemon tools on your opponent's side, and as more Pokemon tools keep getting released in future sets, Guzma is going to continue to be a very useful card. Our next pack is going to feature the Ultra Beast, and we're going to kick this off with Pheromosa. It's a grass type card that deals 20 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon and an additional 20 damage to a Pokemon on the bench. Great for setting up potential Cyrus plays or other bench sniping Pokemon. Nihilego is another poison support card that makes your opponents take plus 10 damage while poisoned, and this ability can stack, so with 2 Nihilegos on your bench, your opponents will be taking 30 poison damage per turn if they get this status. Up next we have Celesteela, whose ability lets you switch any Ultra Beast in the active slot with another Ultra Beast on your bench. This is best used for Pokemon with very expensive retreat costs, which brings us to our next Pokemon, Guzzlord EX. With a whopping 170 HP, it has 2 different attacks. The first one is Grindcore, which for 30 damage will basically have a built-in Team Rocket Grunt effect for its attack. Its more powerful attack is 120 damage for 4 energy. Most of the Ultra Beast cards need the supporter card Lusamine to be able to work, and she lets you take 2 random energy from your discard pile and attach it to one of your Ultra Beasts, but she can only be played once your opponent gets at least 1 point. Silvally is a normal type card that does 50 damage for 2 energy, but it goes up to 100 damage if you play a supporter card during your turn. You can pair this with Gladion, who has the ability to search your deck for a random type Null or Silvally and put it in your hand. By playing Gladion, you can evolve your type Null, and that counts as playing a supporter card during the turn, so you're already dealing 100 damage off rip once you evolve it. Zeraora is an electric Pokemon that is best used for its ability, which lets it generate 1 lightning energy for free as long as it's in play on your first turn. Another great electric Pokemon from this set is Tapu Koko EX, who can deal 20 damage and generate a lightning energy for itself, or attack you for 90 damage with 3 energy. Moving on to our trainer cards, first we have the Electrical Cord, which lets you move 2 energy off your active electric Pokemon if it gets knocked out by an attack. Our last card is Repel, which basically acts as a Sabrina, but only for basic cards. I only recommend running Repel over Sabrina if you already have too many supporter cards in your deck. Our final set is the Eevee Grove set. First, you're going to want to make sure you have both Eevee and Eevee EX in this set. Eevee's attack is Collect, which lets you draw a card. Eevee EX honestly only exists because you're allowed to have both versions of this card in your deck, which means if you want to have multiple Eeveelutions, you aren't limited to just 2 Eevee cards, you can actually have 4 with the addition of Eevee EX. Sylveon EX is a great card that has a built-in Professor's Research effect, letting you draw 2 cards when you evolve it. This is great because you can throw a Sylveon EX in an Eevee deck to help you draw more cards. Flareon is our next card, which has a 2 energy attack for 40 damage that lets you attach a fire energy to one of your benched Pokemon. Our final Eeveelution is Flareon EX, which has a 130 damage attack for 3 energy that discards 2 energy, but you can attach a discarded fire energy to your Flareon EX at the cost of taking 20 damage, which lets you continuously attack with Flareon EX. In any Eeveelution deck, you're going to want to make sure you have the new Eevee Bag item, which lets you either heal 20 damage from all of your Eeveelutions, or lets them do plus 10 damage on their next attack. And since this is an item card, you can play 2 of them at once to get either 40 healing or plus 20 damage. Our next cards are going to be the Sweets Relay users. Now, Sweets Relay is a gimmick that exists for several cards in this set that lets you deal additional damage as long as one of your Pokemon use Sweets Relay in its last turn. And of all the Sweets Relay users, I think Slurpuff is the best one because it deals 90 damage and only for 2 energy, and it's colorless. You pair this with Alchemy, who does 40 damage for each time you use Sweets Relay during the entire game. So for example, if you attacked 5 times before using Alchemy, for only 1 colorless energy, you can be doing 200 damage. This strategy is definitely a little silly, but it's also hilarious when you pull it off. Primarina got an EX version in this set, and it has 2 attacks. The first one doing 40 damage, but if you have a second energy attached, you can do 80 damage, and then its other attack does 100 damage for 3 energy and lets you heal for 20 damage. You should also pair this with How, which lets any of your Alolan EX starters do plus 30 damage on their attacks. Dragonite actually got an EX version in this set, and it's a 3 dual energy attack that does 180 damage, but then it can't attack again in the next turn. While this drawback can be really painful and slow it down, it's still a very powerful card in the right hands. Our final Pokemon card is Snorlax EX. This is basically a stronger version of the old Snorlax. It does 130 damage instead of 100, and it also has an ability that lets you heal 20 damage at the end of your turn if Snorlax is in the active spot. A great Pokemon tool to put on Snorlax EX is going to be the Leftovers. It's a new Pokemon tool that lets you heal your active Pokemon for 10 HP at the end of your turn, which means if you stack this with Snorlax's healing, it goes up to 30 healing per turn. This tool is also useful on other tanky Pokemon. Our final card of this set is Penny, who grabs a random supporter card from your opponent's deck and uses it, then shuffles it back into their deck. Usually when you use Penny, you're probably going to steal a Professor's Research because it does exist in every deck, but sometimes you will grab a different supporter. Penny is definitely a little gimmicky, but it's still a solid card and I recommend having 2 copies of it. That's all the packs we have to cover so far. Once again, I'll have the written version of this list in my Discord server, which will be in the pinned comment and in the description, so make sure you check that out if you want it to be easier on yourself. My Discord server is also a great place to try and trade cards, so if you're looking to just trade a couple of these cards instead of opening the full packs, then I recommend checking that out as well. If you guys did find this video useful, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and let me know down in the comments if I should make more videos like this one. That's going to be all for me though, so for now keep your eyes peeled for more content here on the channel. I know I'm going to be doing a lot of videos whenever the new Johto set comes out. I will be opening 100 packs by the way, so if that sounds like something interesting to you, then make sure you guys subscribe if you want to see that video when it comes out. Anyways, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.